The day that the Lord, this is the day that the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. Today's Sunday's discipleship lesson is going to come out of 1 Samuel. We're in chapter 26, and I'll be addressing verses 1 through 11. And the title of our lesson is simply Again. Or you could say again, or again. But it's about David and King Saul. Before we move forward, I would like to know if anyone would share with us our last week's lesson, what you gleaned from that, just to bring us up to this point. Please keep your mics open because we have some activities and I want you to share, and share some more. Is that all right with you guys?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
We said yes.
Yes. All righty. Who would like to just share a couple of thoughts from last week? And man, what a great lesson Pastor Crowley taught last week. Okay, begin.
Hello.
Hello. You don't all have to speak at the same time, but I would like for someone to share some highlights from last week's lesson.
Go ahead, Deacon Bart.
Okay. What happened was we found out about Nabal.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking at, did I make a mistake or something? I thought we were supposed to do the last part of.
Well,
that.
you know what? I'm glad you said that because the way it was originally set up, we were supposed to work on the latter part, but it worked out beautifully. And sometimes that happens. Sometimes we take the whole chunk and you just flow with it. And that's what Pastor Crowley did last week. He flowed with that lesson. And so that's why I'm on chapter 26 today. But go ahead.
Okay. But that was when I believe David with Nabal, his wife Abigail went to help David out to let him know about Nabal.
Right.
Yeah. And then I think later on, she after Nabal had his heart attack or stroke and he passed, she married David. David sent for her.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then what was interesting about that back in that day, like Abigail, when Nabal passed, everything that belonged to Nabal came to David. So that was one of the things that I saw. Okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Deacon. I appreciate that. Real quick question. David, it's not listed, but did David get a chance to go on his honeymoon? Did David get a chance to be married? Did he get a chance to chill out and relax? You know, he's been on the run. What do you imagine?
No, because we didn't get to it, but towards the end of that chapter, Abigail was not the only wife that he took.
Betrothed. That's correct.
Yeah, he actually in verse 43 he took Ahinoam of Jezreel, and he had both of them as wives, and then his wife that King Saul had given him, Michael, was given to someone else.
That's correct. And I'm sure we're going to learn a little bit more about that further down the road. But thank you.
But what stood out in my what stood out from the lesson last week for me was just how he really drilled it home how Abigail was not called to the office of prophet, but how she actually used the gift of discernment and prophetic knowledge for such a time as to the dealings with how she dealt with David and even how she moved around her husband.
Correct. She operated in the office of a prophetess, even though she wasn't a prophetess. She used the wisdom and knowledge that God had given her, and she spoke. She spoke up. She supplied the food and the sustenance that those men needed as payment for what they had rendered. And it was a mighty, it was very impressive because David heard her. He listened, and she impressed upon him that she spoke prophetically. So because it's spirit speaking to your heart, a change occurs. And that's what we witnessed on last week. All right, thank you again for sharing and giving us a recap of the lesson. As I indicated today, we are in chapter 26, and we're going to begin. I want to do a little something here with you all today. Today's objective, just want to test your knowledge a little bit. That's why I need you to keep your Bibles open and keep your mics open. But the objective, testing your knowledge, friend or foe, returning to the wilderness, spies and ties, final thoughts, and then some takeaways. All right. Well, how many of you ever watched the movie Catch Me If You Can?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. What was the premise of that movie?
It was a guy that was escaping and doing bad things with checks, and he was pretending to be an airplane pilot and lawyer and everything. So he got away, but he finally got caught.
He finally got caught. Okay. Well, thank you, Dee. Because in a way, David has played Catch Me If You Can with Saul. In a way. Jason Bourne from a movie called The Bourne Ultimatum. How many of you all ever saw that?
Yes, but I don't remember it.
Okay. Well, Jason Bourne slips out of sight and away from the CIA. The CIA agents, during a very suspense-filled chase through a busy railway terminal. And that's the Borg Ultimatum. Very suspense-filled. Great movie. In The Matrix, for those of you that have ever watched The Matrix, how many of you remember Trinity leaping off of a roof and through a window to escape the agents in that movie? Anyone remember that movie?
Yes.
Okay, all right. What about Spider-Man? Mary Jane in this Spider-Man movie, she escapes being crushed by a car in this huge Spider-Man movie. I think it might have been Spider-Man 3. Well, those are movies. That's Hollywood. That's with popcorn and overpriced candy. All right. Those, they pale in comparison to the great escape that occurred in the Bible. This escape that we're reading and delving into with David and Saul, King Saul, that's real life. David, this shepherd boy, has turned into a man. He's been on the run. And he didn't start off that way. Start off playing for David and soothing the spirit. But he became a great escape artist. David's greatness was thrust upon him. Being appointed or anointed the king of Israel, there was a mark on his life. A few weeks ago, Pastor Aaron played a couple of snippets of The Fugitive and then the movie Enough. And it made me rethink this escape issue, this thing that David has been going through for quite some time. And here we are. The tension still mounts. David is still on the run. He can't really rest. He has support. He has warriors that work with him. And compared to King Saul's thousands, David's hundreds, that parallel, he's still protected. He's had some really tight moments in which he's had to trust God for. He's made some mistakes, but he's still a man after God's own heart. And David's men that are supporting him, they're there. They would like for David to kill, but David has been a witness that, no, I can't do it. And so that leads us to where we are today in this chapter. Share with me, if you will, because David's been on the run, what you remember as the results of those run-ins with King Saul. We'll start with, while David played soothing music for Saul in Saul's home, Saul threw a spear at him. Someone tell me what the result of that. What happened?
David ducked.
David ducked. The spear missed. Where is that? Where'd you find that? I'm going to have you look for it. And if you can find it, someone just share what chapter, what verse. David's run-ins with King Saul and the results. And Sister Nita said he ducked. While playing that soothing music for Saul in Saul's home, Saul threw a spear at him. Woo! And David ducked. David, that spear missed David. Where'd that occur? Anyone, please feel free, jump in. Anyone find it?
1 Samuel 20 and 33.
1 Samuel, okay, the spear. Okay, 20 and 23. Okay. I had gone
33.
33?
Yeah.
Okay. I had chapter 19.
Oh, my bad.
The spear missed David, and I had chapter 19, verses 9 and 10. If someone wants to double check that for me, I may have missed the mark. Get it? Yeah. Oh, okay. All right. Next.
I think it's earlier than that. This is a reference back to it in 19, but I haven't found it.
Okay, because I want to get it. I want it just right. But yes, the reference to spear missed David, that occurred in chapter 19-ish, mentioned in 19. Okay, if someone finds it,
my bad. It was 19:10 through 12.
Okay, the mention of it, the reference to what happened, but originally.
No, that's not the original. Never mind.
That's not, I think it happened twice. I think he tried to throw a spear at David 2 times, but I'm still looking at it as well.
Okay, I know, I got you all working. Anyway, when you find it, just let me know, and then I'll go back and I'll make a note of it. All right, let's go to the next one. Saul sent assassins to kill David at his home. When did that happen? What chapter did it happen? What was the results? And you all are looking. And then next, because I can keep it moving, David tried to escape Saul by fleeing to the home of Samuel, the prophet in Ramah. Remember that one? These run-ins with King Saul. But there were results, that escape, that he got through it somehow, some way. Anyone find it? Please just jump in whenever you're ready. And now next, after Saul threw a spear at David, a disbelieving Jonathan discovered the truth of his father's murderous vendetta against David. Where did that occur? What was the result of that? David headed to Nob, first to Nob, then to Gath to escape from Saul. What was the result of that? There's a lot of movement here. There's a lot of testing, dealing with this trial of being sought after. What's the anointed David to do? Next, we have David escaping from Gath, and he headed to the cave of Adullam. There he became the leader of a band of men. Chapter, what was the result? And then the last four. After David was told of the slaughter of priests, he went to Keilah to fight against the Philistines. What was the result? What chapter did that occur? Then those Ziphites betrayed David to Saul. What was the result of that? David's escape to En-Gedi. The results. And then the Ziphites again betrayed David to Saul, explaining that David hid on a hill in Keilah. Okay. All right. Everybody ready? Been looking? Searching?
All right.
Are you ready?
I'm going to jump in.
Okay. I'm ready.
On the one I've found so far. So
okay.
after Saul through a spear, David disbelieving Jonathan, that is in Samuel 20.
Okay.
And
okay, Samuel,
it's pretty much the whole chapter, but this is David explaining to him, trying to basically justify, or he's really in this moment trying to see if Jonathan has the same perspective of him that his father.
Right. Okay, and that was in 20.
20. Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right. Anyone else? Thank you.
Okay,
Sister
I'm
Christy.
jumping.
Okay.
I'm jumping.
All right, go ahead, jump.
1 Samuel 18, verse 11. And Saul threw the spear, thinking, I'll nail David to the wall, but David escaped from him on 2 different occasions. That's first Samuel 18, chapter 18.
And 11, you said?
Yes.
18 and 11. Okay, so first mention, chapter 18. The spear missing David was mentioned in 19. Thank you for clarification of that. Anyone else? Thank you, Sister Nita. Anyone else? Okay, I'll move along. Oh, go ahead.
I don't know if I'm right, because I hope I'm understanding what you asked him. What was that? David escaped from Gath and headed to the cave of Adullam. Mm-hmm. There he became the leader of a band of men. So you asking me, I found it in 1 Samuel 22nd. Am I making sense here? Is
okay, that yeah, I'm getting ready to reveal the rest of the chapters.
Oh, well, go ahead and I'm done.
But I appreciate that. I wanted to know if you all would look with me and so that I could clarify, did I get it right?
Okay, I looked.
I
You
just,
got it.
you know, here again, we're just talking about David's run-ins. I mean, this is so significant because he's still on the run. But, you know, hey, a change is coming. All right. So Saul sent assassins to kill David at his home. Did anyone find that in 19? That's where his wife helped him escape out of that window. Remember that. He was able to escape because his wife, and she had to lie to her father, giving the father the impression that David was, you know, had threatened her. You know, if she did what she did, he loved him. She loved him. All right. What about David trying to escape Saul by fleeing to the home of Samuel? What was the significance? What was the result of that?
That's in chapter 19 also.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the messengers, they started prophesying with
That's it.
Samuel.
That's it. That's it, Sister Arnita. Saul sent 3 groups of men to pursue David at Ramah, but the Spirit of God caused each of the groups to prophesy. And when Saul went to Ramah, he also prophesied, thus enabling David to escape. 19 verses 18 through 24. Number 4, after Saul threw a spear at David, a disbelieving Jonathan discovered the truth of his father's murderous vendetta against David. Jonathan warned David to escape. Chapter 20. Moving right along. David headed first to Nob, then to Gath to escape from Saul. He pretended to be insane. Remember that chapter. Chapter 21. Next, chapter 22. Sister Wasika, Saul pursued David and wound up killing the priest at Nob because of the help that the priest gave. Killed not only the priest, but it was quite a slaughter. It was quite a slaughter. All right, next, after David was told of the slaughter of the priest, he went, and he went to fight the Philistines. Saul planned to trap David and his men at Keilah. Then David heard from God that Saul planned to force the people to surrender. David escaped to Horesh in the desert of Ziph. That's in chapter 23. When the Ziphites first betrayed David to Saul, David and his men escaped down one side of the mountain, while Saul and his men were searching on another. Saul only broke off the pursuit when he heard that the Philistines were about to raid. You all remember that one. Just a couple of chapters over. David's escape to En-Gedi. James was teaching this lesson. And in that cave, David had that opportunity to kill Saul, but he did not. That was the result of being sought at that time. And then here we are today. The Ziphites again betrayed David to Saul, explaining that David had hid in his hill. And this is where our lesson begins today. All right. Freezing again, but I'm going to see if I can move on. Are you all there? Does this make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All righty. Okay. Nice. Okay, there we go. Saul is sending his army, 3,000 men with him in this lesson today. So it reads as thus. The Ziphites went to Saul at Gibeah and said, is not David hiding on the hill of Keilah, which faces Jessamine? So Saul went down to the desert of Ziph with his 3,000 select Israelite troops to search there for David. Saul made his camp beside the road on the hill of Keilah, okay, facing Jessamine, but David stayed in the wilderness. When he saw that Saul had followed him there, he sent out scouts and learned that Saul had definitely arrived. Then David set out and went to the place where Saul had camped. He saw where Saul and Abner, son of Ner, the commander of the army, had lain down. Saul was lying inside the camp with the army encamped around him. David then asked Ahimelech the Hittite and Abishai, son of Zeruiah, Joab's brother, who will go down into the camp with me to Saul? I'll go with you, said Abishai. So David and Abishai went to the army by night, and there was Saul lying asleep inside the camp with his spear stuck in the ground near his head. Abner and the soldiers were lying around him. Verse 8, Abishai said to David, today God has delivered your enemy into your hands. Now let me pin him to the ground with one thrust of the spear. I won't strike twice. But David said to Abishai, don't destroy him. Who can lay a hand on the Lord's anointed and be guiltless? As surely as the Lord lives, he said, the Lord himself will strike him, or his time will come and he will die, or he will go into battle and perish. But the Lord forbid that I should lay a hand on the Lord's anointed. Now get the spear and water jug that are near his head, and let's go. I've read from the Message Bible today, and now let's explore the verses and understanding of the activity that's going on at this time. I mentioned that David had married, it was mentioned that he got married, but David's still on the run. He's still on the run. Saul, King Saul, has been influenced to seek, search, go after him again. Now, I'm trying to get my screen to move, but here we are. We're going to get it done, even if I can't move. There we go. I want to talk a little bit about that first verse. Those Ziphites, they were Israelis, okay? They were of the same tribe as David, Judah, yet their betrayal of David was so contrary to both David and God's cause that David could rightly refer to them as enemies, strangers, oppressors, because they sought David's life. My question to you is, what was their goal as these strangers or oppressors or enemies? What did you all discover as the intent of the Ziphites in opposition to David? Anyone? Why did they go hard after David? What was their intent? What was their mindset based on the word? Anyone? Well, in studying, I found out that, and it's fairly easy, they definitely wanted to be seen favorably in Saul's eyes, and they would do anything to deliver David to Saul because they believed they would benefit. And it's real simple. They were driven to assist King Saul. And that's why they snitched. That's why they told, I guess any time that they could, that, hey, David's over here. Or this is the second time, because in chapter 24, the Ziphites did the very same thing. It's almost the same wording. They were enemies. And having betrayed David once, they knew that the only thing they could do to save them from David's wrath is to make sure that he died. They did their job. They did what they thought was right. And so that's why they doggedly pursued and persisted in trying to deliver David from or to King Saul. Okay. This is a wilderness, like a wilderness of Zip, Zip or Zip. It's an interesting word. And, but the Zip means a refining place. It means a refining place. So it looks like it's uninhabitable. Who could survive? Who could survive there? But the meaning of Zip means refining place. All right. Any questions thus far?
Pastor Cheryl,
Yes.
what I like about verse 1 is they really thought that Saul had a lot of power. And so if you look at verse 1, how they first came to Saul, they knew Saul, they really thought Saul had power, that he could do it. And as I try to read the scriptures, I bring them up into today's time. It's like us. If we think that we have enemies, we're going to go to the person that we think has the power, or as pastors sometimes say, snitching on people, as we would say, or my kids would say in school, dropping on people. And so when I look at these people, really thought Saul was all that and a bag of chips. You understand what I'm saying? So they came and said, okay, they figure if they went to Saul, there was favor with them, and then Saul will protect them, and then they both will be combined together.
And they would benefit some way or the other. Absolutely. Thank you, Sister Rose. I thank you for that. Yeah. As you put the pieces of the puzzle together, as you look at over and over and over this issue, this test, this trial being pursued, and you're going through the same test. Toward the end, I'd like us to talk about, wait a minute, what do you do when this test that keeps resurfacing in your life? Now, we're not going through what David goes through, but what if it's you keep being tested, deal with your anger. There's road rage. You get mad every time you get behind that wheel because somebody is driving crazy, but not you, of course. And you get angry, you get mad. You can't seem to get over this thing. That's a real thing. Or it might be money issues. You can't seem, I lived through this, and so I don't mind telling you because the Lord has brought me from a mighty long way. I had to learn how to deal with money. Budgeting. Oh, it's not a piece of cake now, neither, no. But there was a time in my life, it seems like I couldn't balance things. I had checks that were dancing all over the city. Yeah. I wasn't proud of it. I couldn't get it together. I couldn't seem to pull, but I kept getting tested until I learned. What lesson are you trying to teach me, Lord, about this? What must I can't live like this, because for every check that bounced, I was paying a little hefty fee, and I couldn't get, and it was just a window, but it was my window. It was something that I needed to learn, something that I had to go through. I don't mind telling you. And the Lord is so faithful. Brought me through it because that was not the way he wanted me to live. It could be any test or trial, something that keeps resurfacing in our lives and how we deal with it. It's critical because it's not going to go away until we deal with it. It's not going to disappear. Sometimes that long suffering piece is really long suffering. And yeah, okay. So, all right. I'm sorry. I moved on. Whatever to say. I can't get my screen to move. And so we're doing some wrestling over here. Okay. Verse number 2. Saul arose and he went down to the wilderness of Ziph. He descended. It was reported to him. He was back in his home. And the Ziphites showed up and reported that David was in a certain place. The king made his way down with 3,000 of his select troops, handpicked, his warriors, in pursuit of David again. Now, we remember how he expressed, David, hey, I'm going to back off. But that was lip service, but not really his intent. Okay. Can't get my screen to move. I'm escaping and it's not.
Yep, just stop share. Okay, there you go.
Okay, got it. Let's see. Okay, stop sharing.
Does it move now?
Okay, that is what I'm attempting to do. My screen is paused. I'm going to resume sharing and I'm going to do it this way. There we go. Thank you for your patience, folks. Okay, so Saul was at home in Gibeah, but was persuaded to go in search of David. Again, David was aware. As a matter of fact, the Psalms 54 is a Psalms that was written regarding being pursued by the Ziphites and King Saul. And it reads, "Come with great power, O God, and rescue me. Defend me with your might. Listen to my prayer, O God. Pay attention to my plea. For strangers are attacking me. Violent people are trying to kill me. They care nothing for God. But God is my helper. The Lord keep me alive. May the evil plans of my enemies be turned against them. Do as you promise and put an end to them. I will sacrifice a voluntary offering to you. I will praise your name, O Lord, for it is good. For you have rescued me from my troubles and helped me to triumph over my enemies." That's Psalms 54 that David wrote. Okay. Again, being pursued, revenge in the wilderness, there's a shift that's about to occur. Because even though David is pursued, he knew where Saul was. And things are about to get more interesting. David now sends his spies. David arose and he went to the place because he knew where Saul had encamped. Saul and his 3,000 troops, of course. In verse number 4 is where he sent his spies, and he understood that Saul had come in prepared, but he was prepared as well. Verse 5 says, "And he arose and he came to the place where Saul pitched his encampment, and David beheld the place where Saul lay. And Abner is Ner's son and King Saul's cousin. He was the commander and captain of Saul's army." We remember Abner. He was highly respected by Saul. He even ate at the king's table together with David and Jonathan back in chapter 20. And Ner is a Benjamite. He is the father of Abner and the brother of Kish. Ner was the grandfather or uncle of King Saul. You all remember these names, but I wanted to provide a little background to in reference to where we are in this lesson today. So here's Saul laying in the trench, laying in his encampment, and the people pitched his troops, his warriors, all around him. These were the men that played an important role in this, in David being pursued again by Saul. Okay. In verse 6, and David said and answered, David and said to Ahimelech the Hittite and to Abishai, the son of Zeruiah, brother of Joab, brother of Joab, saying, who will go down with me to Saul, to the camp? And Abishai said, I will go down. I will go down with thee. Now, Elimelech is a Hittite, a priest of Nob, who aided David in his flight from Saul. Remember the death or the 84 priests plus their families and their livestock? Abiathar is Ahimelech's son. He was the only one that escaped and was able to flee to David for protection, because all of them had been wiped out. Now, Abishai, David's nephew, is the son of Zeruiah, and brother of Joab and Abishai. That's back in 1 Chronicles 2:16. Abishai volunteered to accompany David to Saul's camp. He's a warrior. He can be ruthless. He is a fighter, but he volunteered to go with David. So in verse 7, it says, so David and Abishai came to the people by night, and behold, Saul lay sleeping within the trenches, and his spear was stuck in the ground. The people lay around him. David got close enough to kill Saul. It was an opportunity, a golden opportunity. It was Abishai that said to David, God has delivered thine enemy into thine hands this day. Now therefore let me smite him, I pray thee, with the spear even to the earth just once. I won't have to do it twice. With his own sword, he wanted to strike that fatal blow. But David, remembering on several occasions, had an opportunity to kill King Saul. He could have killed him, but he refused to do so. And this is not the first time. David's anointed king, he would not, he's very adamant about that. David wanted God to work this thing out. And so, regardless of the opportunity, regardless of being encouraged by Abishai, I mean, it's not the first time David had been encouraged. Look, you're in a great spot. You're here. Here's your enemy. You can wipe him out. You can take him out. David chose not to, because his heart. He knew. And even in the last chapter, when David was going to go after Nabal and was checked, he realized that an anointed king could not be responsible for killing someone in this manner. Certainly King Saul. So Abishai was willing to do it, to commit the murderous act, but he was restrained by David. In verse 9, it says, but David said to Abishai, do not destroy him. For who can stretch out his hand against the Lord's anointed and be guiltless? You can't kill this man and be guiltless. You can't be exonerated. There won't be mercy shown to you if such a thing is done. You will be ruined. And in verse 10, David said, furthermore, as the Lord liveth, as he lives, the Lord shall strike him. Or his day shall come to die, or he shall go out in battle and perish. That's how he'll be scraped away, not by us doing it here. And isn't it interesting that those men were sleeping? How could they sleep and not hear, not know that David was so close to King Saul? Abner was asleep. The men around them were asleep. That was just pretty profound to me. Did anybody have a thought regarding that?
I think the Holy Spirit, I think God purposely did that to keep them from, ending up getting into the fight and everything, That's, I mean, that's just a thought.
Yeah, the Spirit had to do it. God is in this thing. He's not sleeping. He never slumbers nor sleeps. And there's nothing that gets by him that he isn't aware of. And so what is the lesson what's the lesson here, for David? Well, verse 11, it says, the Lord forbid that I should stretch out my hand against the Lord's anointed. But please, take now the spear and the jug of water that are by his head and let us go. And that's where I stop the lesson. Here we go. By night, they came. An opportunity existed. But David said, destroy not. So here we are, the takeaways. Every test and trial that we go through, there is a lesson to be learned. It can be very humbling. We can fall on our face and make a lot of mistakes, but we're going to go through it. We're going to go through. I want to go through trusting the Lord. I want to go through, even in tears, I want to go through and not curse God. I must go through and not curse God. You may feel some kind of way. Lord, why is it? This thing is happening. Why? Again. Takeaway. We've got to trust the Lord with all our heart. Lean not to our own understanding, because he's trying to teach us something, and I'd rather go through it sooner than later. I must recognize that God has a plan for me. The decisions that I make, if I make them in the moment, in the place of my emotion, it's probably going to be a time where I'm going to regret it, because I'm in my emotion. I'm in my flesh. Well, in my flesh, but I'm really in my flesh. But I gotta be mindful of my mindset, where my heart is right there. I must strive to overcome whatever the evil situation is, whether I'm on the job and it's a coworker that just keeps doing stuff and it's like, what? My boss, whatever I perceive as evil, I've got to overcome the evil with good. According to Romans 12 and 21. It's a must. I believe, I know it to be true, I've seen it, I've witnessed to it, that God will oppose the proud. It's in his word. He will exalt the humble. He is faithful in spite of the evil that surrounds us. And that God always keeps his promise. Always. Now, I took some of your takeaways. What is your takeaway from today's lesson? Please share, because we've come to it. Go ahead.
Hey, Pastor Cheryl.
Yes, sir.
That first one is a tough one. Because when you think about this one, um, everything was laid perfect for David to have killed him. I mean, he had the word, he knew where they were, he walked in, the Lord put him to sleep. I mean, it was like sometimes it's that whole thing of being sensitive to what does God want versus what seemed right to us. Because everything was laid up ready for it. And I don't know. I think as I read it, and last week as well, is one of those things where you read it and say, I think I might have missed my mark on those. So I just think it's a really strong thing to see what he was able to do and how he walked in believing God and standing on it, even when in the natural it seemed as though God had really led him to a place where he could do whatever he chose to, and actually, in a sense, justify it in our own way. Of course, it wouldn't have lined up with what God wanted. So
yeah, that's good. That's good because the appearance, it's like I said, it was just a golden opportunity. It looked like, but in the spirit realm, glory. In the spirit realm, we have to check ourselves and make sure, am I in the spirit? Lord, am I seeing this thing right? Is this really what you want me to do? And it's stepping back. I believe that David was able to hear Abishai's words and say, oh, no. Destroy not. We're not going to do this. It's a go. You're not going to do it. I know I'm not going to do it. I believe it was that time. We know David's heart. He has a heart for God. I believe when we stay connected, and it's a second, millisecond by millisecond. What we got to do this thing that we'll be able to hear, because our eyes will see one thing, our ears will, but our heart gotta know. We gotta know that we know that we know. And I thank the Lord for us being supportive of each other, because sometimes it comes in a text. Sometimes it comes in someone calling and praying. Another time it comes, we hear it in the word. It's through the Bible study. I'm walking in the store and I see something and it jolts me. However the Lord wants it to come, I got to get it. Got to get it. Woo. Thank you, Pastor Porter. Thank you. Anyone else? Any takeaways?
Sister Cheryl, my thing is that I'm thinking, I'm saying, man, when they wake up, they're going to be like, how in the world? This man was so close to us, man. What? And then I can hear Saul, what was y'all doing? Y'all supposed to have been, watching us and whatever. This man was right at my head, because that's where the spirit and everything was and how close he was and everything. But yet he didn't kill him. He didn't do nothing to him.
No,
that's just me.
No, and remember the first time Wasika, do you remember what David did that first time that he came in contact with Saul while he was sleeping? What did he do?
No, I don't know. I forgot.
Remember that
he cut a piece of
and he felt guilty by doing that. He felt guilty as a result of that.
What did you say? I didn't hear you. I'm sorry.
Oh, what David did when he came in contact with Saul, and how he cut a piece of Saul's robe.
Yeah. Part of his gown, right? Yes.
Right. He felt guilty
then
doing that.
Yes.
That bothered him.
That's another time.
Yeah. So,
Pastor Cheryl, one as Porter so eloquently put it, those first two are hard. And as I'm thinking about this, because we have the benefit of seeing how it all plays out.
Right.
It's not us personally, but I think the thing that made it different for David and him not responding as we might have, he wasn't praying for that opportunity. So if I think about life and person at work, manager, whoever, and I might start to pray for things like, Lord, show me an opportunity to, Lord, show me, reveal to me when I should say, when I should do whatever. And we don't see in the text that David ever prayed for those types of things. So when the opportunities presented themselves, they didn't come off to him as, here's what God is opening the door.
Right.
He's opening the door. Right? Because he wasn't asking for it. Had he been asking for that, and these
It would make
things
more sense.
occurred,
It really would make
now
more
he would
sense.
say, wow, he would have listened to the people. This is
Yeah.
God handing him right into your hands. David hadn't asked for that.
No.
So I
No.
think that might be the differentiating factor is when we start to ask for things and pray for things, we look for the evidence of those things.
Yeah, looking for the
Because
evidence.
he wasn't looking for it, and these opportunities just kind of presented themselves, maybe that's why. Again, I'm speculating, but that's how I'm thinking about it outside looking in.
Outside of the, you know, but when we go back
Well-
to this young man who was a shepherd boy out in the field, see, he's accustomed to being out in the desert, taking care of business. He's not afraid. He's a sharpshooter. He's boom, 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 boom. The least likely individual, the one that the brothers wonder, well, why are you in here? You know, he was the one that was anointed. And from the get-go, the dots were being connected. From the get-go, he was chosen. From the get-go, his heart was in a good place. From the get-go, like clay, Play-Doh, you can mold and shape and whatnot. He still has that kind of a heart. But
And I think
How
Pastor
do you-
I'm
yes,
sorry.
go ahead.
I'm sorry, I cut you off. Go ahead.
No,
I'm sorry.
no, go.
No, I was just going back to what Christy said. I think back to that psalm that you put up earlier. You know what he wrote following this. His whole concept was, God, deliver me from this situation. I mean, he really was putting through those psalms. You see that he is putting all of his trust. Everything that happens has to come from God, and God has to do it. And that just really shows it's just eye-opening just from when you think about it, just that whole concept of restraint, even when you know, as she said, you're praying for God to do it and for us not to get ahead of God and we do it, or we, you know, and it also kind of says, hey, how do we pray? Do we pray that we can fix it, or do we pray that God handles it? And then,
Yeah, that's good.
and
That's
then having
good.
and then having that discipline that even when a natural opportunity comes in place, that we are able to say, well, I recall what that prayer was and what my communion with God was about, and I'm still going to let him do what he does,
Yeah,
versus me intervening. So I think that might be the word for me today. Stop intervening. So,
you know,
Pastor Cheryl, I agree with Pastor Porter. That is excellent, Pastor Porter. But I looked at my takeaways as like a quarter, two sides. The head will be how God prepared us through the evil. He prepared David through the evil, through all his running away. He prepared David for it. And the flip side of that coin would be the test, how you tie the tests and trials that we're going through. And to me, it just brought back something Pastor Porter and Chrissy says as it relates to everyday life. 99% of our lives is a test. And the test is not what we're going through. The test is how we respond to what we're going through. And if we fail the test, then God gonna give us a test in a different way. And if I look at my life, majority of the time, I didn't understand when the enemies was trying to come up against me. However, in the spirit, I had to change my thinking. And God let me see in the long run, the enemy blessed me. And that's why I had to change my attitudes towards my enemies. So
that's good. It's all of that. Those are the way we connect the dots as we walk through. And yes, even if it resurfaces 10 times in a different manner until we pass that test, and even if we pass the test, it still may come back. It still may come, because there's another piece that has to be driven home, that he wants us to perfect us in it, through it, because he's God. And this is what he wants for us. My test is going to be different from yours. Yours is going to be different from mine. And yet we're all going to go through. And if we choose to go through sorrowful, it's going to last a whole lot longer. We have to have a mind It hurts, sickness, financial issues, loved ones, that with all this pain and suffering and hurt. And what is it that you want me to learn? Even when we're being chased, hunted, it didn't always come out that way. Sometimes we're the huntee. David became the one that was in a position. I've got you. I got you where I want you. But I'm still loving you. I'm still going to love you, treat you right. I'm going to do right by you. And it's sometimes a bitter pill to swallow when you're in these positions, but God. Well, ladies and gentlemen, once again, I've gone a little bit too far. It's 11:02. Tune in next week for the rest of the story. Now, go and enjoy your Sunday in the Lord. I love all of you. Are there any prayer requests before we end for this morning?